say that I'll do that writing tomorrow than to do it today. And on this episode of From ABD to PhD show, we're going to talk about the reasons why you as a doctoral student can get in the way of your dissertation process and what you can do to reverse those trends. And so what I want to say is just thank you all so much for tuning in. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings, and I'm founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that you, the doctoral student, can write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. And this episode of From ABD to PhD is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program, which is a 4-month coaching experience to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation over the next 4 months. If you are someone who is interested in learning more about how to get your dissertation done quickly, I would love for you to visit www.velocitydissertation.com. And with that, today, I really want to talk about this topic, and I want to give you all a little bit of context before we go into the material, because what I found is that this is the time of year that you are tired as a doc student. Like you've been grinding, like the new year, new me has worn off. You're trying to figure things out. It's the, getting into the end of the first quarter of the year. You're trying to figure out, what do I do now? And you're trying to, propel yourself to that proposal defense, try to get out of your program. You're trying to get to the final defense. You're trying to rush to hit the various deadlines and things that you have. But what I know is that also you're trying to do this while managing, a busy work life. And probably right now, work is doing the absolute most. They probably have doing all these requirements, things that they never did before. But all of a sudden, they know when you are working on your dissertation, this is the time for them to start adding on all these tasks to your plate. And then not only that, you're taking care of family and trying to make sure that all that is balanced while still trying to carve out some time for yourself in order to just have a peace of mind. But as a result of all these things happening, I know at the end of the day, when you look up, it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, you look up and say, shoot, I haven't done anything with my dissertation. And what the dissertation ends up doing is getting the last priority on your list of things to do. And as a result, we're in the situation that you're in. Whereas you might be not experiencing the success that you want as fast as you want. You might not be hitting all the marks that you thought you would back in January at the top of the year. It's okay, but I want to give you all some insight on how you can get out of your own way, because some of the things, the barriers that are in place throughout this process are things that we ourselves put in our own way. And so today's episode, I really want to talk about the blocks that we put in our path to success and how to remove them. Because if you haven't recognized yet, we can just be our own worst enemies. And the dissertation process is all about what you are willing to do and how you're going to navigate everything else in life, because honestly, those things don't go away. So let's talk about strategy and insight on how to get those done. But as always, before we get into the material for today, if you can let me know who you are in the comments, where you're coming from, and then also to build community with one another, because we are a group of, doctoral students, maybe professors are watching, that are trying to figure out how to navigate this process, and having a community is really important to that. So let folks know who you are in the comments, where you're coming from. And if you're writing your dissertation, where you are. And if you aren't quite there yet, let us know about your work research. Go ahead and drop it in the comments. I'll be sure to read those and pull them up as we get into the conversation. But I have 3 points that I want us to talk through today when we talk about why you're getting in your own way during the dissertation process and how to overcome it. So the first aspect is that what I see a lot of doc students doing, and in particular this time of season, is that you have adopted what I call the "I'll do it tomorrow" mantra instead of "I'll make the time right now." And we see it over and over and over again. And this conversation and this idea came from, not from me, it came from Renee Goings, who is a co-owner of Done Dissertation, and my wife. And we were having this conversation today during one of our team meetings. And we were just talking about this idea about how we can get into this mindset about just getting through the dissertation, where we could just get stagnant and stuck and get into this cyclical process. And so when we were talking about that, it was in the context of we get so many folks that reach out to us for help, right? And we've heard over and over and over again from doctoral students across the country this idea and question that they keep asking about, what hacks do you all have about, how do I manage my life as well as get through the dissertation process? Like, how do I get more time? And what Renee said, which was genius and so true to this journey, that's not always the question that you're asking, right? Sometimes underneath that layer, you're probably asking yourself, like, how do I keep going in this process when I don't have any energy to give it? If this is you and you feel like you don't have that energy, let me know in the comments, because I just know that this happens to a lot of us. We're like, I've prioritized everyone and everything. And then when I sit down to actually do this writing, I don't have any more left. And I know for some folks who are tuning in, I know I got a couple school leaders on, so I know what that's like for a couple of my principals when you're, navigating, running a school and trying to finish a dissertation. Like the school gets all your time, and by the time you get 6, 7 o'clock at night, you're spent. Your brain energy is fried. And when Renee and I were talking about this, it's just very interesting because what will happen is like you have two decisions to make when these experiences happen, and you find yourself you don't have the energy. The first thing you can do is figure out how you're going to get it done and push through it. For some of y'all, you have been doing that. And for some of y'all, that works. But I know for some of you all who continue to push through it, at times you will burn out and you crash and burn. And so I've seen this lead to folks with severe, physical things happening to them, illnesses popping up out of nowhere. And it's because of the stress of the situation. And then for some other folks, they may decide, hey, forget this, I'm going to leave. And I feel like that's even worse because sometimes we know we can get it done, but it's like we have to be real with ourselves and say, did I really give this thing the time that it deserves? And for many of us, we have not. And it's really a time where you have to really start reflecting about, am I willing to give the energy that this dissertation deserves? But what ends up happening, right, when you have these conversations with yourself, so this is like the internal stuff that you're probably thinking. If you are thinking it, let me know in the comments so I know that I'm not alone with this, is that as you are writing and you're trying to sit down to write, what you end up doing because you're so fried and you're trying to write at night, or you figure you might get up early, you're not an early morning person, you get up to write and then it just gets so like, I don't even know where to start with this thing. And because of that, what you'll say to yourself is, I'll start tomorrow. And then what ends up happening is that tomorrow happens. And then you'll say to yourself again, you know what? I'll start tomorrow. And then what ends up happening before you turn around and look up, you have had 6 months of I'll do it tomorrows. And what that has led you to is where you are now, possibly stuck in this process, not experiencing the success that you want, even though that you've seen classmates who, in your mind, I know that's what y'all thinking, but I'm gonna say it for you, who you feel like are not even as smart as you, but they have somehow figured out a way to get through this process, and you're still stuck where you were 6 months prior. And look, I know that just is what it is, and it's okay to get into that space. It definitely can happen, but you can't let that idea of I'm just gonna do it tomorrow really take over the process, because it can easily do so. Because when you do it tomorrow, the next thing will come up. And then I know for a lot of you all, because you all are high achievers, you got that new promotion at work, probably got a new job that's taking up a lot more of your time than it did before you got that job. Like all these things start to get in the way. But what I want you all to start considering is that the dissertation will only work with the energy that you give it. So what you put into it is exactly what you get out. And we tell our clients this when you work with us, like, we have a great solution, we have the system, the framework, but if you don't put the work in, you won't experience success with us. And I always tell folks that, and to be upfront and honest, because you have to put the work in. We're going to give you all the structure, all the strategy, everything. But if you're not willing to put the work in, that is something that no one else can do but you. But it's really important. And what I want to let you all know right now is that there will never be enough time, there will never be enough energy that you have to finish your dissertation. It's not happening. You're not going to find this time out of nowhere. It just is not happening. Your schedule is what it is, and you have to come to reality that your schedule is what it is. But now what you have to do is carve out time and make time for this dissertation. Because the great thing I like about dissertations, unlike many other things, is that dissertations go away and you can be done with it forever. And so you don't have to spend all of your time trying to figure this thing out. Honestly, for those who are past proposal defense, it'll take you about 4 months to finish this thing up. Especially if you collected your data, you should be out of your doctoral program defending in the next 4 months. That's what we're helping our clients to do, and we do it all the time. 4 months is all you need when you have a proven system and process in place that can help you, and you're willing to put in the work. And so what I want you all to start doing is that if you're trying to get out of your own way in this dissertation process, you have to give the energy it needs. So in order to do that, you have to figure out ways to carve out the time. So the time will be, for some of you all, it might be getting up earlier. It might be staying up later. You might have to figure out what's your ideal writing time. And I know that fluctuates for different people. So you got to figure out what time works best for you. Like for me, I was a morning writer. Like I like the morning. The afternoon, after about 4 o'clock, I'm done. My mind is fried. So you got to figure out who you are. Also, you might need to have conversation with your family. Talk to your children, even little ones. Tell them, hey, I got to write this dissertation. I got to get this done so we can have a better life and do all the other things I want to do later. Talk to your spouse, to your partner, talk to your family. Like people have to be involved in this process, because you can't try to do this all alone, knowing that what your schedule currently is and that the time hasn't made it for itself. So you have to get people involved in order to get through this process. And for some of you all, it might be, hey, I need to figure out, how do I do this at work? I mean, just is what it is. Just keep it real. And we had this conversation during our office hour call with our clients last night, just talking about, how at times we just have to find the space, and sometimes that's at work. For some of us who have control over our schedules at work, it might be putting that meeting on our calendar that says busy. So nobody knows exactly what you're doing, but you are getting something done for yourself. You got to figure out the ways to do it, because again, this process can be done. And once it's over, unless you're one of those overachievers that's going to get a second doctorate, you don't never have to come back to this thing again. So you just have to be able to carve the time in to get this thing done. And once you lock in, when I see our clients lock in and get into that zone, nothing stops them. And I know that's for you all, that nothing can stop you once you do that. But you have to get out of your own way. And if you keep staying and doing the same things that you are and getting the results that you don't like, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to change this to get new results? And that's what's really important as we get through this process. And so if with that particular point around, this idea that you have to adopt the I'll do it tomorrow, many of us have adopted it and say, I will do it tomorrow versus I'll make time right now. And so if you are that type of person who keeps saying, I'll do it tomorrow, my challenge to you is today is to give yourself the space for tomorrow. We're just going to focus on tomorrow. We can't focus on the next couple of days or whatever. Just for tomorrow, what 30 to 60 minute time block are you willing to give yourself to put work in towards your dissertation? That's all you need, is that 30 to 60 minutes. Put that in for tomorrow. Find that time. And if you do, shoot me a DM on social media or LinkedIn, or if you watch on YouTube, drop a comment when you do that, just so you can let us know what's your time. Hold yourself accountable for that. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in. I'm looking at the comments right now. Shout out to, we got, let's see here. We have Kevin checking in from Seattle, Washington. We have T. Taylor, who is currently ABD at the University of Pittsburgh. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to India Watson, who is from Memphis, Tennessee, is at Liberty University in their doctoral program in the Doctor of Strategic Leadership. Thank you for tuning in. Angela Williams, who's checking in, who is currently an EDD candidate at George Washington University for Ed Leadership and Admin, and just finished the draft of Chapter 2. Shout out to you, Angela, for finishing Chapter 2. I know for a lot of students, that's always the holdup. I know actually the last couple of days, I've been doing a number of workshops at different universities, specifically tailored to the literature review. So I know that's a big feat for folks to finish that chapter. So congratulations to you, Angela. We also have Tiffany Fullwood. Good to see you from ED candidate from University of North Florida. It was good to see you as well. Tiffany, I think you were at AACTE. If you correct me if I'm wrong. T Green, yes, that's you. Definitely was good to see you at the AACTE conference. And let's see who else we have here. Keisha White, who's checking in, EDD student at NC State University. Perfect. I think if I remember, Keisha, you also were at AACTE as well. And your dissertation will begin in 2024, but I'm getting some wisdom now. That's the perfect way to go about it, is to get these things and insights now so that you don't have to, figure these things out later. We got a couple more people just jumping in. We got Nicole Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. Third-year PhD student at Howard and getting ready for proposal defense. That is perfect. That's exactly where you want to be. And Nicole, if you feel like you need some support to get ready for your proposal defense, we do one-off proposal defense sessions for folks. So if you need that type of support, feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to talk with you more about that as well. And we have, sorry, I'm going to catch up on everybody else. F. Lee from Des Moines, Iowa. Bethel University ED student taking final grad research courses. Congratulations. And Kevin asked the question, I'm early in the process. And the question is the overall dissertation process something you can share? So Kevin, the process will look slightly different by university and what you decide to do. So typically dissertations and then the process will entail you developing a research project with the purpose of providing new knowledge to the field. And so with that, in terms of the structure, typically would you see a traditional, quote, traditional, because that's those type of things are going away now, but quote, traditional dissertations where you'll see folks do 5 chapters. And typically those 5 chapters will introduce your topic, and give context to what you're studying with the goal of setting the parameters for your study and to showcase why your study is actually important and the field needs your work. Then in your literature review, you're going to talk about the past literature related to that topic, again, to point out how your study is contributing new knowledge. So it's hard to do something new when you don't know what's been done previously. So literature reviews to kind of address that. And then chapter 3 is typically your methodology chapter, where you talk about how you're going to actually answer the research questions for your project. And then chapters 4 And these chapters can be more than this, and they can look very different. Chapter 4 is typically a findings chapter where you actually provide the data. You've gone out and collected the data. Now you're actually going to, tell everybody what you found. And lastly, chapter 5 is your discussion chapter, and where you will showcase and highlight what does what you found mean to the field. So you did all that work in the proposal to say what you think the study means. Now you've collected your data. In the last chapter, you're going to talk about, how does this, data that I've collected and my answers to my research questions generate new knowledge for the field. That's like the whole dissertation process, and as quick as I could do it in less than a minute, right? There's so much more to that and nuances in each chapter, and there's so many different formats. Our clients do a lot of different formats, so that's just an overall kind of scope of the process. And lastly, before we get to the next part, shout out to Tiffany Teachy dropping in from North Carolina A&T University as a PhD student in leadership studies. So thank you all for tuning in. So far we've talked about this idea when we think about how to get our own way in the dissertation process is that you adopt the I'll do it tomorrow mantra instead of the I'll make time right now. The second piece that I find for a lot of students where you can experience some troubles with the dissertation and how you can get in your own way is you are so bent on trying to be right instead of trying to be done. And what ends up happening, what I want you all to do is stop fighting your committee to be right and instead just get support from your committee to be done. Like a lot of us are trying to get all these things right. And this is not the dissertation process is not like a test, right? You're not trying to get an A. You're trying to get out of these programs. That's an entirely different aim. And for those of y'all keep going at this process like you would do a master's program, like, hey, I'm trying to prove these teachers right that I know what I'm talking about. This is not that show. And what ends up happening is that during this process, right? And it will happen, and I'm gonna give you some nuance on how to think through this. There are gonna be times that you want to fight your committee on something, and for some of us, we're combative about everything. And the dissertation process is not the time to be combative on everything. You kind of got to pick and choose your battles, but you got to remember that there's a power dynamic, and you all probably recognize that your chair holds a lot of power in this process, and so does your committee. They're signing off on this document. So as much as you think it's yours alone, it's really you and the committees. It just is what it is. You're building it together. But when you're in these conversations and you have this power dynamic, it's not always in your best interest to fight everything. And I want to say that I've learned this kind of from my own experience as a doctoral student. So I'm not telling you anything that I haven't experienced. Because I remember when I was going to write my dissertation, like before I actually started my proposal, my initial dissertation was going to focus on black male high achieving students in STEM majors. That was going to be the focus of my dissertation. And I remember going to my dissertation chair, shout out Dr. Grosslin. She's a professor at the University of South Florida. At the time, she was my professor at Morgan State. I remember Dr. Grosslin like kind of sitting me down, was like, yeah, the STEM thing is cool. But she's like, I don't want you to get so consumed in the STEM piece that you may not get enough participants. And I want you to think a little bit broader because I think your work can have more implications outside of just STEM. And at the time, before I got to that point, we had that conversation, I was trying to be ahead of the process. So I had already wrote this literature review about STEM majors and their experiences at HBCUs because that was going to be the focus of my study. I did all this pre-work. And then when she said that, I was just like, shoot, come on, really? Like, do I really need to go broader? And initially I was trying to fight that battle. And then I came to the realization I had to start thinking about it. You know what? I can still be broad, as she mentioned, and still collect data about STEM majors and write about them later. So I made a concession in that case, even though I was really focused, and I know I could have done a great dissertation just on STEM majors, but actually her suggestion was very beneficial to my study and my career, because had I not done that, I may not have found my focus on Black male adult learners from doing that dissertation research. And so I had to recognize that, sometimes you can get what you want in the scope of what your faculty members want as well. So in your mind, you got to start thinking about, wow, where can I find the intersection of what I need and want and what they're asking me to do? And that will make for a great dissertation and one that will get signed off on. But what I see a lot of people do is, and this is what I recognize, but a lot of people don't recognize this, is that you have to first recognize your goal is to be done, not to be right. And once you figure that out, the process gets a lot easier. Now you start figuring out, all right, what do I really need to do to get this done? And I'm not going to fight on everything. And then once you realize this, right, you'll recognize that once you get your doctorate, you can do research however you want to do it. And I know for me now, I focused on STEM majors. I've done a lot of research on that. And it was my focus, things I wanted to focus on. I talked about as a graduate student, I couldn't necessarily do it specifically for my dissertation, but I've gone on to do that after. And with that, I want you all to remember what the long game is in this dissertation process. It's not for you to get, to do everything that you in your mind wanted to do. Do most of it if you can, but it's for you to get out of the program, get the doctorate, and do all the things that you went into this doctorate to do. Remember, you all had a why for why you got into this doctoral program. And so you got to keep that at the forefront and don't let kind of the semantics of the process keep you back. And what I see is a lot of students will let that hold them up, and it keeps you back in the process. So you become your own worst enemy in the dissertation. And I don't want you all to experience that. That's why I'm giving you this inside information right now. And so any of these things resonate with you, let me know in the chat. I see some people left some comments. I'm going to bring those up in a second. And for those who are just tuning in, this episode of From ABD to PhD Show is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation over the next 4 months. So if you're interested in learning more and you want to get your dissertation done now, you're tired of waiting, you're tired of being stuck in the same spot, visit www.velocitydissertation.com to submit your application, to learn more about our program, to hear from our graduates, so that you know that this is the best decision for you to get your dissertation done. And so with that, I want to say thank you for folks who have been dropping in comments. I know Tiffany said, wow, you said, I'm about STEM. Yep, I am too. And that was the work I wanted to do, but I had to broaden my work. And then you also can have another arm of, STEM research for me in my case. And Tiffany, you also mentioned that you said, thanks for the perspective. Like, look, I'm just trying to give you all the straight facts that not only do I know from, just seeing other students, but it happened to me as well. So I can give you an idea about what I was exactly thinking at the time when these things happened. And again, your professor has gone through all of these things. So it's not like anything that, that we all haven't experienced, right? You all got to be mindful of that. Your professor's experiences too, they just don't tell you all the time. But if you ask them and get them to kind of give you insight to their experience, they probably have had very similar experiences going through their doctoral programs. Again, we all don't walk out like this. It's a process for us. And so the last point I want to make when we're talking about how to get out of your own way with the dissertation process is that once you adopt the I'll make time right now, and then when you stop fighting your committee on everything and recognize your job is to be done, not to be right, then what will happen is you will start to have a roadmap and a plan for your dissertation. But here's what I see happening too often for doc students. You're trying to see so far down the road that you miss the opportunity right in front of you. And here's what I mean. At Done Dissertation, we are all about creating a plan. We have a whole event called Design Your Done Dissertation. Be on the lookout for information about that coming up soon. That we help you map out your whole entire dissertation process. We are all for planning. But what ends up happening is once you have the plan, and once you make the plan for the future, you have to take steps to achieve that goal in the present, right? And so for a lot of us, what will end up happening is you're looking so far down the line that you get overwhelmed. And then you don't recognize the steps that you can take, the small steps in front of you that you can take to finish your dissertation. And I'm just going to give an example of how I see this sometimes play out. So imagine, right, you're writing your dissertation and you're going to do a 3-article dissertation, right? You're going to do 3 different articles that are going to comprise your dissertation. You're going to have an intro chapter, a conclusion chapter, and 3 articles in between. You've mapped it all out, your timelines and everything. Where your job should be right now to focus on the, you said you want to do your methods first, so that's the easiest. You want to focus on your methods section of Article 1. You're so busy trying to think about how the heck am I going to write that discussion chapter at the end of this thing. And then you let that you let that take you away from the work that you have right now on just focusing on the methodology section of Article 1. Because recognize you can't even get to that last chapter if you haven't finished the 3 articles in between. But I see some of us doing it, and it will frustrate you. And if you've been doing this and you've been wondering why you've been frustrated, that's one of the reasons why. And as I mentioned, all these things are things that I have experienced. And when I was going through my doctoral process, I wrote my dissertation in 7 months. So I wrote my dissertation from about August of 2014, and I had a final dissertation written in March of 2015. I get it all together, prepare it. I get ready to send it to my committee for approval. They sign off on it in April. I get it ready, and by late April, early May, they sign off, and it goes to the last person that's a part of the process. And sorry for folks who are just tuning in. My camera went out on you all. It should be right back now. And then when I got to the last part of the process, I get this letter, and like I said, I always keep everything. This is the letter that I got with my writing, of course, but this is a letter I got from the department chair, who was the last step in the process. And basically, they gave me 4 glaring things that I needed to write and figure out before I could defend. And then lastly, at the last page, it says, they said, I think these improvements should be made before the defense. And then in bold, it says, not ready for defense. And so, this is something that I experienced. I don't know if folks can see that on camera there. Not ready for defense. And this is something I experienced in my process. And I had 2 choices at that point. Because for me, I was already looking down the road. I had said, I wrote my dissertation. I'm trying to, get ready for graduation. I'm planning for that stuff. And then I was looking so far down, I didn't recognize that I was missing some glaring things in my work that this person pointed out, which was valid. I had to say it was valid. And then as fast as I could turn it around to get these things done, the faculty ended up leaving at about mid-May because they were on 9-month contracts. So as you all know, when you get caught up like that and you're in that situation, I end up having to defend the following, October instead of that May. But here's what I learned is that sometimes, I too was just so focused on graduation, I didn't see the opportunity right in front of me. So what ended up happening is when I got the announcement that I was not ready for defense, I had 5 months waiting for them, or 4 months waiting for them to come back from summer break. I had my dissertation done. I was trying to transition to a faculty member. I was working at this point. I had transitioned. I went from being a K through 12 teacher to working in higher education as a staff member. And I knew I wanted to go to faculty. I used those next 4.5, 5 months till faculty came back to start writing publications. So by the time I went to defend my dissertation, October of 2015, I had already publications come out that I was able to cite my dissertation. And then I had a number of pieces that I wrote during the summer that I was able to hold on to, so that when I became a faculty member that following fall of 2016, when I transitioned over to a tenure track faculty member, I had publications already in the pipeline. So literally my first year as faculty member, I had 21 publications because I had did a lot of work before I got there, but then I also added on to that while I was a faculty member. And so that time gave me the space I needed to do the work. So had I been looking and been so devastated about what was the end result and the goal I was looking ahead at, I didn't recognize that the small steps I had in control in front of me were just writing those publications. And literally those things helped propel my career. And that's the reason why I got tenure now. All those things like really added up. But if I couldn't see it and I was so stuck on where I wanted to go and looking so far down, I wouldn't have seen the opportunity that was sitting right in front of me. And if you look on Inside Higher Ed, it's a publication in higher ed. It's called Inside Higher Ed. If you type my name in there, I wrote a piece about this in 2015 when I didn't defend. And I talk about the wait time and how I use that time to write publications and what doctoral students can do. So there's definitely an account of this out there as I was experiencing it. And so the analogy I give when I'm thinking about this is that, imagine, you're driving a car, right? And you're so busy trying to find the on-ramp and you're looking to your right and you're looking over and you're trying to figure out where things are that you don't see the car that stopped right in front of you because of traffic. And what a lot of us will do in our dissertations is be so consumed with the end result, which is fine. Like you have to have a plan, you have to be planning for the future, but then you have to take small action steps to help get you there. But if you're expecting that, I made a plan, I'm just going to magically get to that end result, it's not happening. You got to take the steps. And what differentiates those doctoral students who finish from those who don't is your willingness to take those small steps, even when you feel like you haven't accomplished anything, that you can do to get yourself closer to finishing your dissertation. This is why in our coaching program, every week we ask our clients, what did you accomplish from the last week? And then what's your goal, small or big, for the next week? And all it takes is these small mini goals to add up to a larger goal of getting out of the process. And so with that, those are all the comments I have for today. But if you have any questions for me, please let me know in the comments. I hope this was helpful. If you are watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching this from, please do subscribe to our channel so that you can get alerts, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can learn more when we go live with these videos and talk with you all about different aspects. And again, this episode of From ABD to PhD is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It's a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation over the next 4 months. So if you are ready to finish up, make sure that you reach out to us at www.velocitydissertation.com. And real quick, I do got to shout out one of our clients, Iris Rogers. Shout out to Dr. Iris Rogers, who successfully defended at Florida Atlantic University. Super proud of her and her work. Iris has done a lot in her work. Really strong writer, really great work on Black women doctoral students and their experiences with cultural safe spaces. So shout out to you. And we got another client who's getting ready to defend next Wednesday. I will be in the building for this with my Jordans on, and they know why, because I've heard a lot about their defense and what everybody's wearing. So I'll make sure, even though I'm visiting virtually, I'll have my J's on for your defense. And I'm looking forward to you finishing up as well. And I'll definitely give you a shout out once things are done. And so with that, I'm looking in the comments. Is there any questions? Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Tiffany says that, yes, this is very helpful. There were great tips and encouragement. No problem. Glad to help. And I'm glad this was helpful for you as you start thinking through the process. And Tiffany, feel free to reach out as we can help support you to get through this process as well. Like, you don't have to go through this alone getting these things done. We definitely have a process that can help get you out. And T. Taylor says, congratulations. I'm assuming that's for Dr. Rogers. So yeah, shout out to Dr. Rogers on successfully defending her dissertation. And then also, I think, I'm trying to think, since the last time I've gone live, we have 2 other clients that have finished as well. So shout out to Dr. Tiffany McBean, who successfully defended her PhD at Walden University. And then also shout out to, excuse me, let's see, Dr. Tiffany Baisden, who also defended her dissertation at Columbus State University. So we've got a number of folks who are finishing and getting out of this process. And we're so excited that you all are just holding it down and showing all the things that you can do when you have a process and you're willing to implement. And thank you, India. India says, thanks, this was helpful. You changed my perspective about getting it done. Perfect. India, what are you working on right now? Where are you at in the process? And thank you for folks who have been tuning in. I appreciate you all as always. And if you catch this on YouTube, you can grab the link, share it with your classmates, share it with your friends. We're just trying to get the word out to as many doctoral students so that folks don't have to go through this process alone. It's already hard enough. And so I'm just trying to give you all the insight to help change your perspective, as India mentioned, and just give you some new insight about how to get this thing done. I'll shout out to you, India, who's writing chapter 2. Chapter 2 is one of my favorites. I know for a lot of folks, they don't like it, but that's one of the things I actually do like about, writing. I do enjoy lit reviews, especially if it's something like in my wheelhouse where I don't have, once you learn the literature in your area, you always have it. And so I love writing. And this is why you see the number of people writing about the same things over and over again, because you know the literature and you're just adding on new pieces that come out versus trying to learn everything from scratch. But I'll stay on for maybe another minute or two. Any questions that you all might have about something you might be experiencing as you go through this process? I'd love to take any questions that you might have. And don't worry, whatever question you have, probably somebody else has the same question. So feel free, please, to ask your question. It can help not just you, but others in the community as well. And again, if you're somebody who needs the help and get this thing done, visit our website, www.velocitydissertation.com. Make sure you grab this. Make sure you check out our program. Look at the testimonials from our clients so you can understand what their experience was like. And we look forward to supporting. Our goal is to help support at least 1,000 doctoral students to get their doctorates. And so you all are the reason why we're able to do what we do. So we would love to stay in contact and stay connected with you all and in community with you. Shout out to you, the People's Editor. Shout out to y'all. Y'all doing great work with folks' dissertations, getting things edited. Shout out to y'all. Any questions? I don't see anything in the comments. Let's see. I'm just double checking. All right, good people. Well, we'll be back next week with another episode of From ABD to PhD. Again, I'm Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that you, the doctoral student, can write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less. If you're a doctoral student and you're tired of going through this process alone, you want a proven process, a proven method to get through, I would love for you to visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our Velocity Group Coaching Program. This program is a one-of-a-kind experience where we're helping you, the doctoral student, write and defend your dissertation proposal or your final dissertation over the next 4 months. And yes, I said next 4 months. It doesn't take long to do this when you have a proven system and process in place. So if you're interested in learning more, visit www.velocitydissertation.com. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us wherever you can find us on social media. And again, I look forward to talking with you all next week on another episode of From ABD to PhD. You all